Hello, fellow Mythrunians. It is that time again. We would do a weekly live stream. Welcome back if you've joined before. If you are new to the channel, welcome. This is the weekly live stream where I do a little work on Mythruna, chat with you guys. Hold on, I'm typing on the Discord at the moment. If in the bottom of the screen there, you can see a link. If you hand type it in, you can get to the place where you can join the Discord or download the latest game. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So there's our patrons going up on the left there. Up in the upper left, if you want to see that link again, it's up there. Tonight we're going to be integrating the portal blindness so that when we're teleporting, that all works. Looks like we've got 0 people on. That's cool. A lot of times I like warn people 5 minutes ahead of time, but it's also the Christmas holidays. Might be a little quiet tonight. Let's just one more thing. Starting now. Okay. I can go back to lurking on that Discord. Yeah, I suspect everyone is on holiday, although a couple of people did. Alrighty. So, hey, Romcram, how's it going? YouTube is lying to me about the number of viewers I have. That's no surprise. Nice. Welcome, Ron. Hope you guys had a good Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas. Let's go over some of the things I got done. I'm actually playing on my Christmas world, which was a world I created just for, obviously, Seed 2024-12-25. And so I've been working on making portals fully functional, which has been a frustrating endeavor. I'll talk a little bit about why. But the big deal is it kind of spiders out as if you hit this portal and it wants to find the nearby portals, those nearby portals also need to find their nearby portals, and it rapidly pushes off the edge of the map that's been generated, and more stuff has to be generated anyway. So it's a balancing act between trying to make the portals properly connected and also not generating an infinite world all at once kind of thing. I'll describe how I've done it so far. I had to add some features to the generator. But my query optimizations have been working great. I mean, the whole thing is really fun to run around in now. Okay, so we're here at night. That's what the portal looks like activated. So eventually it will be activated and deactivated based on certain conditions, namely the moon, because that's why they're called moon gates. But I can actually disable them here too manually, and this was what the moon gate would look like normally. And then when the moon is in the right conditions, you'll see this. And now, when you jump up on the platform, boink, you see that purple glow. That means that some portals have. So we can pick one of these portals and we can jump to it. I'm going to pick this one. And then, so this is where portal blindness would come in, because right now I'm kind of locked, and still we would want portal blindness right here until like the far stuff, basically until all this stuff comes in, there would be some amount of portal blindness in effect. That's what we'll be working on tonight, is implementing the portal blindness. It's really strange that it takes so long for that to come in, considering it's already generated, because I've been here already. So anyway, once you've, so that's the other thing is, oh man, I didn't dress her. Let's put some clothes on her. I've had to regenerate this world several times. I think I like the basic tunic, pants with belt. I think the basic tunic, I don't know, it's dumb, but I mean, considering she's all over the world, it just looks better than the vest, which doesn't look very good when she's running around in the snow. Okay, so back to this. Hey, good after evening, Lando. Ah, the regular crowd's all here. So when you jump up here, you gain this effect on yourself. You can see you're sparkly, and the portals open up. And if you step off this platform, there's like a timeout where the portals go away and your sparkly effect. Essentially, even if the portals are there from somebody else, you can't run through them unless you've been up on the platform and you have that glowy effect. That glowy effect lets you run through these portals. And so we ran through there. If we find the same portal that takes us back, we can go back to where we started. And this is where we were originally. So that's all working. So the other thing I did, I think the other portal would have been a better. So let's go back over there, since we've already generated that area. We can see more sky here. So, spoiler alert, but the moon gates will be triggered off of the moon and the phases of the moon. And so we don't have a moon in the sky right now. We must be new moon situation. Oh, nope, there it is. So now there's this advanced time command that I can use. So I can just say time, and it'll show me the current time, or I can say time, and I can say 1 day, and it'll rapidly shoot us ahead 1 day. But it's cool because it does the whole animation. Which was not something I had planned. So now we can see what the phase of the moon on the next day is. The normal, this normal thing that I can do here, this is only affecting the client side. This is sort of just tweaking the parameters of the environmental effects. It's not actually changing the real world time. Whereas what I just did was I really advanced the world time forward a day. But the cool... that whole thing where it's like if I did 4 days, it's going to rapidly shoot through 4 days. That, as cool as that effect is, I did not intend that. That's just how the client side interpolation works for the, oh yeah, we got an even bigger moon now. Yeah. So that effect was a happy accident. I did not do that. I don't know that I would have done that on purpose because this is sort of an admin command, right? Nobody's ever going to see that except for people who know that command exists and are messing with their servers or whatever. But I think it's really cool, and I'm glad it does it because it's like a really neat effect. Now, when you set the time, it sets it forward instantly, but that effect is, kind of neat. So the other thing we did, and I'm going to advance this in the fake way, so that we have some light. So the other thing I did was integrate that the hand-drawn shader. So now there's this new tab here where we can go and we can enable the hand-drawn shader. And so we can see what it looks like as we walk around. I think that's kind of cool. And because I could not find settings I liked in all cases, in fact, let me go ahead and pause the time. But this looks pretty good in most cases. There are some where, yeah, so I'm going to have to hit one of these just so that we can still see, not this, which one, blueprints? One of these leaves most of the background, so this still leaves most of the background clear, we can see, but sometimes the mid-range here, oh, and I could have just done this. Sometimes the mid-range here is too dark. But now you can actually go and you can set all kinds of stuff. So you can say, yeah, so the near factor, I want to set that way down. This is basically the edge detection. So these are all of the edge detection parameters. So you can say, the edge is due to colors. I don't want any of that. So this is only, well, let's turn off shading for a second. So let's take out the shading. So you can change how strong the shading is. And so now it's just the hand-drawn stuff. You can come up here and you can say, well, I don't want any of the color edges. I only want the depth-based edges. You can turn that all the way down. And so this is just what it's determined from depth. And you can see how in the middle it gets kind of muddy here. where there's like this grayscale, which happens because we're looking at the edges on, we're looking at surfaces on end, and so it to the algorithm it looks like an edge. And so like it makes this muddy area. In the desert it looks really obvious, and so you can go and you can set that down. You can turn the edge effect off for that area. You can turn it back up, and so you can kind of tailor the way you want it. And there's one for the mid factor as well, which, you know, you can see how it's making that sort of, you know, this area here darker and lighter. And there's a fade effect for when it's looking at these far, it fades automatically with distance to give you kind of a depth effect, and so you can actually turn that off and make everything just as dark, or you can turn that on, and you can change the fade exponent or the, yeah, so that's supposed to change the curve. You can see it kind of making that darker and lighter as it goes. I think 4 is the default. At any rate, it's kind of fun to play with, and so when you get one like the lines the way you like, oh, so you can also change the randomness, which is what this sketch effect looks like. You can turn that down, and then you'll get more of a straight, you know, computer effect. I think the randomness adds a lot to it, though. It makes it look more drawn, because you get like the double lines, a little bit of sketch. So we'll turn that back up. And so we can come in here in the shading, we can turn this back up, and oh yeah, so it's got real dark because we can actually overexpose the shading as if we really dug our pencil in. Let's change it back to right around 1. You can change the threshold at which it switches from like the dark crosshatch to the light crosshatch, which can sometimes give an interesting effect. Like if you wanted to brighten up those things, you kind of find a setting that works. Like we've got some nice contrast in this area here. You can also set the contrast, which will sort of make the, you know, universally light everywhere, or kind of increase the darkness in some places. So so that kind of looks cool. And then if you want to, you can come in and add a little color in, and so if you just give it a little bit, it looks maybe like you color penciled. You can also set a saturation threshold, which means if we face the portals, they're not open, but the saturation threshold basically for really bright colors, you can say, like if you wanted to turn the color all the way up, like super strong, and then you can set the saturation threshold, which basically it'll only apply that to really bright colors. And so you'll get just, you know, like the greens and the blue from the thing, and everything else will be black and white, which is basically just cool different effects. You can also do the same thing for brightness, so only the brightest things get colored. Just different ways of bringing in just a little bit of color and giving you that whatever effect you're looking for. And eventually these will be things that you could draw into a scene. Oh, that's yellow. The yellow shows up because we've got the saturation threshold on. Anyway, so this is sort of the fun thing. What else did I do? Well, let's turn this off because it really starts, I don't know, I looked at it all day Saturday as I tweaked settings, and it really starts to like ingrain in your vision. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to add another filter here, which will be that portal blindness filter that we worked on in a previous live stream, and then hook that up to sort of vision effects, which is, I think that I had a variety of ways I wanted to do this, but I think what I'm going to do is start building a vision effect system, because I think it eventually players will have, you know, client-side vision effects applied to them. It might be blurred vision from getting knocked in the head, or you know, snow blindness from being out on the tundra too long, or whatever. Portal blindness seems like a logical thing to shove in there, so we're going to build out that a little bit. And I've actually put my list together. Not this. Let's close the master task list. So yeah, we're going to add portal blindness filter to the post-processing state and give it a settings panel. So then we'll be able to turn it on whenever we want with a little slider to set the distance. Then we'll add this vision effect component and create an app, basically create a client-side system for it to watch for those. Yeah, and then we'll wire that in. I need to... Hey, Max, how's it going? So one thing I need to do is for the local world, like if we're on the map, for the local world around us, I need to know what's the closest, basically ungenerated terrain area, and then for the far terrain, I need to know what's the closest ungenerated tile. And between those two things, I can figure out where to set the portal blindness distance, so that as the world fills in, the portal blindness recedes, and eventually when the world's fully filled in, it'll just be turned off again. And once it's fully turned off is where we'll have to basically create an action on the player for the client to tell it that portal blindness is cleared. Because this is one of the places where the server can't know that we've loaded everything unless we tell it. So this is our to-do list for tonight. We'll see if we can get it done. And I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, so what I was saying before, with the portals, so I've temporarily drawn them on the map, and eventually I'm going to give, that's one of the things, if we get to it, I would like to start adding custom map markers so that players can put their own map markers down when they find cool stuff, and then also be able to like draw lines between things so that they can start making their own map of the portals. This is one I generate just for my own benefit because I'm trying to make sure the algorithm works. Here we have a case where it has disabled these portals for some reason. I'm not actually sure why it didn't leave one of these active. Oh, I actually do know why. So, anyway, there's an algorithm it uses to figure out what are the best portals for the 8 cardinal directions, and so if these two would be on the same cardinal direction, it'll pick the closer one, figuring that you can probably get to that other one by taking a hop. So it's to simplify, the portals that actually appear. But that also means that in order to properly figure out which portals at a given site are enabled, I don't know if you guys can see what I'm talking about, but there's like these lines showing me the different possible portal connections between the gates because they're near enough. And so like this gate here has a bunch of these gray lines coming out of it, which means those were all disabled. And I think they were disabled because the back channel, basically, if we were at this portal, we would not see this one because something here has overridden it. And yeah, I think there's actually a bug in that algorithm too. At any rate, you can't really know all of the portals that'll be disabled from this site unless you go to each of the other sites and calculate the back portals to see if they would be overridden by something else. And the problem was, because to make the portal network interesting and not have a lot of dead ends, I had to extend this out to basically 12 kilometers is how far it searches. And that puts us well outside of a single, 16 by 16 kilometer tile, what I call a sedectile. And so that's fine. So it'll generate these sedectiles if we fall off the edge of the map. But then to figure out for this one out here, all of his, it would frequently fall out another sedectile. And so just to figure out which portals to open and close for this particular thing, sometimes we'd have to generate whole sections of the world. And I don't mean in detail, I just mean plot out all the points of interest and the caves and stuff. But that can be expensive. And so I ended up putting something in the engine where I can ask for a sedectile only if it's been generated. And so if I'm looking here, I need to force this to be generated. But when I'm looking at for the back channels, I don't. Like, I don't care about these up here to know that this one's on or off, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm kind of... I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but when I first started doing it, I took a nap earlier and I was really depressed because when I first started doing it, it was like, oh, this is awful, and it's occasionally making the system run out of memory, trying to generate all these things just to find the back channels for these portals, and then I, of course, woke up with an idea with a completely different attitude. So, moral of the story is, if you're in a bad mood and you can't, and seems like all hope is lost, go take a nap, see if you feel better when you wake up. Anyway, let's get to work. We've got our to-do list ahead of us. And the first steps are relatively straightforward. Whew. The birdies have stopped chirping. So anybody get anything cool for Christmas? So first we will go over naps and walks. Walks, absolutely. It's just kind of cold. So a walk for me now is getting on the treadmill. And actually I found a pretty decent thing. If I get my YouTube playlist set up pretty good, I can bring my Chromebook down to the treadmill and walk on the treadmill and watch YouTube videos. You know, as long as they're the right topic, they're very, you know, they can inspire me to get back to this with a new attitude. But I do miss being able to walk outside. So we want to find our post-processing state, because that's where we set up all these little guys. And we want to add, I think it doesn't matter how we put it here, but I want to kind of see what the portal blindness filter. I'm trying to decide whether I want to put it before or after the hand-drawn filter in the list. Okay, I got that set up. I think we'll leave hand-drawn last. So we want and then see, who needs auto completion when you're good with cut and paste? But let me open up the portal blindness filter. There it is. I have it open already. We can set the fade distance already. That's all good. We want it disabled by default. So that is portal. Actually, I think I still have that on my clip buffer. Yep. Enabled false. Okay, that's all good. And then we want to find the, I think it's the, is it the game settings state where I set those up? It is. So we will make a new one here for portal blindness roll up, blah blah blah, get portal blindness blindness all right, and so this one we want fade distance, I think that's what I called it. Fade distance is indeed what I called it. Okay. And yeah, this property panel saves me lots of time for wiring things up like this. Let's say 16,000, and we want it to go by 10. Let's go by 1. That's fine. Don't have a fade debugger. Okay, so this should actually have hooked it up. Anyone taking bets on what I've screwed up? I got my wife for Christmas. I got her one of those, among other things, I got her one of those webcam enabled, the bird box things, right? They've got bird feeder with a webcam, right? She got me the same thing for Christmas. So I've got 2 of those now, different ones, and so we're gonna wire them up. We're gonna hang them up outside in different places of our yard. Yeah. Well, for different reasons too. Like, my wife's not so mobile, so we see, nature and critters out in our backyard, and it's not like she can jump up out of her chair and come see. She'd have to transfer to her wheelchair and so on and so forth. So I thought it'd be cool for her to at least get to see some wildlife while it happens. And then her getting it for me, she knows I like birds, so that was the reason there. I think it's cool while the train is loading in, sometimes you can see, like, there was this little hovering gray thing, so that's some kind of building or temple in the middle of that bubble there. Can't quite see what it is from here, but it appeared before the rest of the terrain, so you get like some insight. Okay, so portal blindness, we can come. It should be in our rendering thing here. Look at that. And so we ought to be able to say enabled. Woo! Oh, I need to set the color. Gray is not a good color. So look, we can see like what's very near to us. Oh, this is going to be, yeah, that's really going to be disorienting, which is exactly what it should be. Okay, so then if we then extend out, like as it, ooh, that's fast. So as it extends out, as the world loads in, it'll eventually extend out to the, so like, if it's still waiting for the map to load in, you might see this bit. I think that's cool. Because it hasn't loaded in all the world yet. And so as it finally loads in all the world, it'll recede completely. And, so it'll eventually recede completely and it'll go away, right? Yeah, totally. With the really bad blue screen. Oh, it's just a little bit. That's kind of cool looking. Yeah, Mythruna doesn't have any clouds at the moment. Yeah, I think you're right. We get just a little bit of the effect here, which really does look like fast clouds just moving over us. Man, I really need to come up with a good excuse to implement clouds. I have so many ideas. It's just there's no game in clouds. It just would really make the sky look nice. Anyway, I actually I'm less liking this effect in the game than I did originally. But yeah, it reminds me of like the bad blue screen effects on those 80s movies, 80s 90s movies. So we may end up wanting to always have it be something, in this range until we get far terrain, just to kind of keep it. And there may need to be a full screen effect that we put on top of this, so that there's maybe always a little bit mixed in. Boy, that butterfly looks like he's really flying in a storm. Because I don't really like the fact that it completely disappears in the near. It's supposed to be, you know, a full eye effect going on, and I think this loses some of that. It looks more like a world effect. So we'll have to put a minimum. Yeah, so maybe we'll add another parameter real quick. But that's cool though. And we need to set the color, of course. I don't know if I exposed that. So we'll take a little quick. Slow it down as it moves away. It's moving towards us. So, oh, you mean like slow down the effect as it gets further? Let me try something else really quick first. So we need to set the colors, that's for sure. But I want to add. These are not the real ones. But we can use these to change the real ones. Let me make sure. Portal blindness.frag, are they still basically the same? Boink. Ooh. Boink. Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, okay, so they're still the same. So we'll delete this one temporarily. Yes. And we'll come over here to the scripter. Make sure we are running Portal 2. I think it's Portal that we want. Yeah. Yep, it is. Okay, so we're going to add a fade minimum. And come over here. We don't need this, that's not a real one. We want smooth step on the depth. Smooth step on the depth. Uniform float in fade minimum. And distance equals. Why am I dividing it by 2? Oh, it's the, yeah, because I'm stretching between the min and the max. And depth equals smooth step between 0 and 1. I think if we change this to G or M fade minimum, and then in here, private float fade minimum equals 0.1. Yeah. This is going to be a teeny little value. 0 to 1. Okay, so we want to public void set fade minimum capital M. This dot minimum fade minimum equals fade minimum do minimum do Wink. Wink. And to be nice and beanie. Alright, so that's hooked up. Then we ought to be able to check it before we get into the full application. To answer your question, yes, I could slow it down. I would have to add another parameter for that, a speed parameter, which may be worth doing anyway. Ooh, boy. Oh, boy. Because then maybe we won't load these. Probably I changed something to make those not work correctly anymore in this particular test app. Okay, so now we have a minimum. What the? That's a little bit of a non sequitur. All right. I don't know. So now, see, this looks better, right? Even when it's close to us, we still see a little bit of the effect. We can actually increase that. I haven't hooked it up to a setting, so we can't actually test it here. Oh, we can in the... See, I want it to look more like a fog. So that's good. So blindness, set fade minimum 0.5 f. Oh, it's doing the opposite of what I want. Oh, right. Right. So that's not what we want. We want the fade minimum. Oops, G or M fade minimum plus smooth step times 1 minus M fade minimum. So like if fade minimum is 0.1, depth will always be at least 0.1, and we'll add back to that 0 to 1 times, you know, whatever the non-1 part of that is. So if it's 0.1, this will be 0.9. So depth will always be 0 to 1, but it will never be less than fade minimum. We should be able to reload this, and it will reload the material. Yeah, there we go. So see, even as we see farther away, let's turn so that I can, right? So then even as we see farther away, let's set this smaller, right? We'll see always a little bit of it, even as we set this farther away. Oops. So we can still see a little bit here. I think probably we want more. Let's try 0.5. That's just minimize you, and then I won't accidentally clip on you. So maybe that's too intense, but we can set it in game now and play with values until I like them. I also thought it'd be cool to have like some kind of sparkly effect in the near, but so anyway, I'm curious to know how Creed and Nickelback came up. Maybe it was something I said or imitated. I have a kind of running need to fill empty space. Okay, so I like it. We have the parameter. We can use it. Let's set it to like, let me just see if it does what it's supposed to be doing. This means it would be almost on all the time. Yeah. So yep, it's doing what it's supposed to. Now I can copy those. Portal matdefs, portal blindness dot frag. Yep, and actually we should delete dot vert. We don't need it, and then I can source main resources matdefs boink. There we go. All right, and then we can wire in the setting fade minimum. We need to set the colors too. I don't think I have a color pop-up for these property panels. So this is a 0 to 1 situation, and we'll set the 0.1F. And let's go steal our colors from here. Sorry about that, guys. I don't have an easy mute button. Post-processing state. Do we have math? Yes, we do. Okay. Okay, so color, RGBA. Actually, I think that I don't provide a setter for these. You have to get it. Yeah, you just have to grab it. Portal blindness. Get cloud color set. Okay, and portal blindness dot get background color set. BG red, BG green, BG blue, blah. Okay, so now the colors will be correct. Well, correct. They may not look right in Mythruna itself, but that's what we're here for, to tweak things until we make them work correctly. Alrighty. So, how is my Baldur's Gate adventure? I haven't gotten back to Baldur's Gate 3 yet. I'm right on the threshold of just having crossed into like that southern mountain pass thing after feeling like I'd cleared out all of the, quote unquote starting area. But it was taking too much of my time. I was seeing too many sunrises. So I needed to take a break because I wanted to have my full focus on Mythruna for this week. But I do definitely intend to get back to it, especially once I've... So I had a home theater in my basement, and the surround sound system died, and I had no money to fix or replace it, and so then that was like controlling my projector and stuff. So when I got the PS5, I hooked it up to my TV upstairs, and it was regular size, 42-inch, flat screen TV, whatever it is. And I've been playing up there, but once I get I got a new projector and a new surround sound for the basement, and I just haven't hooked it up again. But when I do, I think Baldur's Gate 3 will be more tempting. Okay. What was I doing? Oh yes, portal blindness. See, even just thinking about Baldur's Gate 3 gets me in trouble. Okay, so enabled. Okay, so this is when it's close. We get the effect, and I like that cool little foggy effect. Alright, and then, oops, as we get, that's what it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. As it gets further out, see there's like almost none close to us. Now I can bring it up a little bit. Ooh. Oh, so I think that wasn't... Oh, yeah, so it didn't ever set the initial thing. So this is what point 1 would look like. I think that might be okay. It's definitely now a full screen effect. Maybe that's not enough. Point 2, maybe? Yeah. So then it's always a full screen effect. It just happens to be more dramatic as we get further away. And so if I drag it, boink. Yeah, so even when it gets really far away, boy, at night this is really wiggy. Yeah. And so then, yeah, I think this will work. Good enough to start hooking up the... Ooh, it looks like fog coming out, fog coming out of the ground as I walk up to it. Whoa. I wonder what this looks like when we're in the water. Wow. Looks like those camera effects where they used to just smear stuff on the lens. It's funny. Alright, so yeah, I can see this being really disorienting, and the whole idea is to encourage the player to kind of wait for the world to load in before doing anything strenuous. Okay, so now we need to hook this up for real, which you'll see when I turn it off. Oh, suddenly so much better. So anyway, so that'll work. And I'm sure endless artistic tweaking because that's how I roll. Now let's start hooking up the real stuff. And so we can say done here. And done here. So we got 2 items on our to-do list done. That's pretty good. We took a slight detour, and we've still got more than an hour left. We might be able to finish this. All right. So I think for the vision effect, I kind of want it to work like the body effect. So I'm just going to steal this vision effect. But this hopefully be something we could even use for, let's see, whole screen vision effect. Publics. So, like for even potentially infrared vision, night vision. I mean vision effect. Blindness, regular blindness, you know, or really blurred vision, macular degeneration, any of those things, you know, the drunken, blurry. I can hear my older child coughing up a lung in the background. Okay, so that's our vision effect. It is a persistent entity component. And so that's good. And then what we want to do is, I think temporarily, before hooking it up to the actual portal stuff, because there's a whole, basically when we jump, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. So I'm going to wire up some actions on that. Right now every temple has that weird, blob of stuff where you can run actions on. So I'm going to wire up a temporary action like I did for the test and enable and so on and so forth. So we can say add blindness and remove blindness. Just a test, and we'll say, what is the if? It's like only if is it activator? Well, what do I say in my documentation? Self. I don't. Well, thanks a lot, past me. That's a pretty important thing to know, who's running the secession. That's not what I want. I'm pretty sure it's activator. Where could I look to see for sure? Because I don't think they come up in here because I've got it all wired up to the other. Anyway, only if activator vision effect not equal to null. Oh, this is the one I want for that. This one is only if it is null. Okay, so then activator, new, vision effect, effects portal blindness. Activator, remove, vision effect. Let me just see if those work real quick, because they will toggle. And I know it's going to take it a minute to load, but it's not going to actually do anything. But the fact that I'll be able to, well, one action will be enabled when the other one isn't, that means that it's working. so where's the ball? Alright, so we ought to be able to right click on here, say add blindness. Okay, so it would have done it, and then we can remove blindness. Okay, so it's adding the component and removing the component. We're just not doing anything with that component, but now that I know that that's working, we can start on the visual side of things. And I'll stay over here near this. Put this right next to a chasm. So this is why when you come portaling in, you don't want to just go running around until your portal blindness clears, because you might walk right off into a chasm. Alright. Hey, I get to mark another done. We did. Vision effect component. It's good to have some really easy items on your to-do list to maintain momentum. If they're all super sloggy, you get fatigue, list fatigue. Where do we want to put these? We want to put this in, how you say, here. Next to the avatar state. In fact, I'm going to open avatar state so I can cut and paste some things. Okay, actually, it will do most of this for me because my editor is configured this way. So we say vision effect state. See? Oh, it's got the old. I'm about to have to flip this here again. All right. Mythruna.client.view, and we are already set up. Okay, and then real quickly I'm going to wire this into game session state. It's always going to be active, but I'm going to add it near here anyway. Because we're going to need some of the same things. So there was the design decision on whether a vision effect you can only have one at a time. Because I could see having, snow blindness, infravision and blurred vision at the same time, for example. But I can always add that later. So I've been treating it as one at a time kind of situation. In which case we want to have a watched entity. We don't want to watch all vision effects. We only want to watch a vision effect for ourselves. So that simplifies things a lot. So normally, like in, I've talked about this before. Let's wait for it to reconnect. So I'm going to scroll up to where I was. Oops. Before. Right, normally an entity has different things attached to it, and so you can only have one position attached to an entity, because if you attach a different, it overwrites this one. And so I've added vision effect the same way. So vision effect can be attached to a player, and they can only have one vision effect at a time. If I ever want to have multiples, then I have to basically make separate entities and have the vision effect point to the target of the effect. And in that case, I would have to have a whole entity container and all that other garbage. But since I only know I only need one at a time right now, that's what we're going to implement, and I can always pivot later. And so we are going to want a watched entity over here. That much I know for sure, and that means we need import some silica star. Let's just grab it all. We're probably going to want entity data. So this is why I like having another thing open, because I can come steal stuff from it. Cut and paste programming. So we want this. Boink. Take it's our entity data, and then I want to see how I wired up self over here. So in this case, where did I do that? I did that in initialize also, so that's perfect. So watch entity. Oh, we need an avatar ID too, which means we need game session state. Oh, I can actually just grab this from I have set this up to allow switching avatars. But actually, yeah, that's what this is about. But we will not do that today. So we will get state, avatar state. So this is how you let app states collaborate with one another, right? Any of these base app states can ask for one of their siblings by name, by class. And so as long as they're initialized in the right order, this is how the different systems or states in your application in JMonkey engine, this is a JMonkey engine thing, can collaborate with one another. So from here I grabbed the avatar state since it already had the avatar ID, and it's actually managing that for the application. So I could have created a reference to it, which means that if it ever changes I would know it and I could swap out my watched entity for a different one. But I cannot think of a current use case for that. Eventually, so sometime down the line you'll have familiars, animals and things that are your familiars or other spawns like that. And I do like the thought that you could take them over for a little while, in which case your avatar ID might switch. But I'm not sure if it will be like that. Like, you still may have your same avatar ID and I might link you to that as a controller, because switching entities to an NPC gets weird because they're not set up to be an avatar. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into that, but just trust me. It is a consideration, so that's why this exists. Oops, that's not what I want. I want to go back to searching for self. So there's some things I have to do to maintain self. Yeah, so this is probably an update. And so we want to have an update method. If I can spell override correctly today. Sometimes on these live streams I get like in a mood where I cannot type to save my life, and fortunately today we've been pretty successful. Self.get component, or self.get, that's all. We're going to need import Mythruna.es.star. Those are all our entity system components. Vision effect.class. So now we protect void set vision effect. Vision effect. The effects. Alright, let's just say effect. And we will, in case we have multiples, or different ones, keep track of what the current one is. So if this dot effect is not equal to null, we have to remove the current effect. This dot effect equals effect. Oops. And if this dot effect is not equal to null, then apply the current effect. And so in reality, you know, there would be some kind of handlers and lookups and things, but I'm just going to hardwire it in because there's only one, and no reason not to. So in some future thing when I implement a different vision effect, which probably will be on a live stream because that's good entertainment, we can fill out the rest of this, but for now I'm going to just get state, see post-processing state, which I'm going to need. So I actually need I think that's all. Oh, I'm going to need net as well. Net to get connection state. I'm going to be a good boy and only import what I need for the moment. So get state. Actually, let's get it just once. Post processing state post. Post equals get state class true. Okay, and so then in here we say post get portal blindness dot set enabled false, and this one will say true. So when we have the effect, we didn't even check what the effect was, right? Because we're not handling different effects. The other thing we're going to have to do before this works for real is wire in, you know, setting that distance. But for now, we can actually just see if this works. We can see if it compiles first. Nope. Oh, yeah. So I don't want body position. I want vision effect. So this is telling the entity system that I want to get this entity, but I also want to know about updates to it, and that's so it otherwise acts like a regular entity where I can grab the components that I asked for. In this case, I'm only asking for one. But then every time I go down here and say apply changes, if apply changes returns true, then I know one of those components changed, and in this case there's only one component, and because it's a watched entity, I'll actually know it's removed because it'll be null. Normally they just fall out of the set, but anyway, this is a cool way of watching one entity instead of a bunch of them. Very convenient for exactly situations like this, or keeping track of your own position like in the avatar state. Plus, I like having a class called Avatar State because it makes me think of The Last Airbender when he'd enter the Avatar State. And that's never a bad thing. And if any of you on this live stream have never watched Avatar The Last Airbender, you merely missed out. That's a good show. I think I've seen the whole thing like 3 times. Ooh, this is so useful though. Alright, error serialized. Oh, ha ha ha! Classic me. Classic me. So when you add a new component that you want sent over the network, you have to add it to the. What have I created a? Am I still? You have to add it to the list of objects you want serialized over the network. So down here somewhere, yeah. So we shall add another one. Used to be, you had to be super careful about doing these in order. But no longer. Alright, let's try again. Quiet chat tonight. That's fine. Yeah, it's a... I mean, the holidays are like that sometimes. We actually did something new this year where instead of making turkey dinner on Christmas Day, we we like put a roast in the crock pot the night before. So, you know, cut up the veggies, put it in the crock pot, set it to cook before we went to bed. And so, because younger child had to go work, he had to work at like 4:30, so we couldn't do Christmas dinner at the normal time. So we did it at lunchtime. And so all of the meal prep for Christmas Day was just opening the crock pot and sorting out the veggies and cutting up the roast. It was awesome. Stress-free day. No, like trying to coordinate cooking the turkey and anyway, so let's enable the blindness, add blindness. Woo! Check it out. We should be able to say remove blindness. Woo! Check it out. It's always nice when things work the first time. Okay, so now we need to hook up portal blindness to the real things. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show is, because it's at night, we can say disable, and it gets dark, right? When the thing is enabled, it adds, and you know, it lights up the area, that glow. And the same thing is when we hit here, we can see that there's purple light now because these guys also light up the area. So that was a cool effect. So let's let them go away. I need to add sound effects though. There should be like some kind of like a wind chimey, distant wind chimes kind of thing going on here. Okay. So we're good. All of that's hooked up, which means now we need to figure out how to calculate. How do I make my sound effects? It depends on the sound effect. So sometimes I will create them from scratch if I have an idea on how to build a sound. You know, if it's going to be like instrument based or some sound I can make, then I'll grab that. I also have from the very first month of Mythruna, I bought like a pack of like 100 sound effects, which you get to choose from the sound effects site. Like, I can't remember what it's called, soundeffects.com, or I don't remember, which I'm going to have to remember if I go back to download stuff. But I haven't used all my 100 sounds yet. Players can need to toggle portions. That's just a debug thing. So rather than having to wait for the moon phases to come around to be right, I can enable and disable it just to see. But normally that white ball that I've been clicking on won't even be there. But back to sound effects. For this one, I would probably load up Reaper and just layer some things in. But sometimes I find a sound effect on whatever that website is that I have. Yeah, what is it called? Yeah, give it a little plug for a second. Sound effects, free sound effects. I might have been to free sound effects, but this is not what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I have found some things here, but you have to be really careful about your the licensing. But I know I have like my account information written down somewhere, so I know roughly I could find it. But yeah, I bought like a pack of 100 sounds. So if sometimes I'll find something there and then load it into gosh, Audacity. Drew a blank on that. Or Reaper, and modify it myself, add some effects or whatever. Originally, Mythruna, like all the footstep sounds were modified versions of things I'd gotten off that site. Okay, so we created the app state for vision effects, but we haven't actually wired in the thing, so I'm not going to call it done yet. But yeah, me toggling on and off the portals, that's totally... the way it really will work is that at a certain time at night, that center little sparkly thing will start, and then if you jump into that, that's when the portals will open. Because you can't use a portal unless you've stood on that center platform. That's really the portal. The pink orbs are just, or pink glowy things are just to pick your direction. Okay, so we need to hook into some, we'll do the local things first, because I sort of feel like that will be easier. So the world view state, what do we do here? Thing is, the thing that makes this tricky is that these classes that load in parts of the world are more concerned with the things they've loaded than the things they haven't. And in this case, we want to know... do I have a map already up? Yeah, so let's pretend this is the map, right? We want to know what the nearest thing we haven't loaded is. Like if I'm standing here and I haven't loaded this tile yet, then I don't want to show anything beyond this border. So I want to set that to be the distance of my portal blindness fade. And so if I've loaded in like all of these others, it doesn't matter if I haven't loaded this one in. I need to keep the radius down. So this one thing, I need to know what the closest blank is. And none of these classes are really set up to keep track of the blanks, because they're more concerned about filling things in. It knows what the blanks are, but it doesn't have any concept of what the closest ones are. And so I think maybe once a second we'll ask it to check. Because we have the slots. The slots, yeah, I don't really want to get too far into what that means. But there are many ways to deal with the sort of transition. Like say you could only see this area, then when this X moves across this boundary, you need to drop these and load these. Which means always around the player there's this 3x3 area. And rather than loop over X and Y or X and Z or X and Y and Z because it's actually 3D, I pre-calculate the slots around the player with their offsets and with a sort of a reference to, well, I can just show you what a slot looks like. Where's the slot class? So slot, right? So it knows what offset it is in that grid. It's pre-calculated its priority so that when I I send it to the background threads for processing. It knows what its offset is in world space, so I know how to look things up. And it knows whatever current view is loaded, which, if this is null, that means we don't have a view yet. Or actually, the leaf view is what we send to the... Maybe it always has one. I can actually see. So this will be... So... Yeah. Because as we slide over... So when we're here, and these are our 3x3 around us, when we slide over, we still want to reuse the ones we've already loaded, so we move them to a different slot, and we leave these slots blank, I think, until they get loaded, or we fill them in, that's right, we fill them in with new empty leaf views, right? So if we've already got one, if we don't have one, we make one. If we've already got one, yeah, we move it, and we've already rendered it. Well, we keep the... Yeah, anyway, so every slot will always have a leaf view. And I should be able to check the view to see if it's rendered or not. And yeah, so this is... Okay. View mask also knows. View mask controls... So there's several layers, right? There's the... Like, I'm going to try to draw this again. I had like a nice graphic for it at one point. But so I see you're looking at this in 3D, you know, like an isometric view. So you've got the big 1024 by 1024 tiles. And then you've got your little... I should have done that as separate. So you got your little square on top of that, which represents this guy, right? So this is... See, we really were doing 3x3. When none of these are loaded in, it shows the low-res terrain underneath, which is pretty high-res at this area. And so there's this view mask that we send to the shader for this guy that says, once we've loaded in an area, don't draw that, because now we're drawing it with blocks. And so the view mask actually knows which one of these are filled out. I'm just, while I'm talking about that, I'm trying to think if that's useful for this, and I think still no. But it is interesting that the view mask, we could ask the view mask. It will know what's closest, what's close. Where does view mask come from? I think that's part of the built-in world system. Yeah, so maybe I should run the game to show you what I mean. Because I'd be able to toggle the things on and off to show you what I mean. But down in the shader, it basically, yeah, it sends them transparent, or I think, yeah, makes that section transparent. There actually was a way to turn on the debug mask. It would show it down in the... It's 3D, so it's a little... It's flattened out 3D, so it's a little confusing. And I don't remember if it can be toggled on while the game's running, or... But, so here, it'd be a little bit of insight into how the game works here. Which if you've ever played with the settings, you've probably figured out anyway. So let's make it bright so you guys can see what's going on. Pause. Okay, so let's back up from her a second. So if we go over to the debug I can actually turn on and off the local clip, which we see, or the local blocks, right? And so here we see this is what the the low res. It's actually kind of high res here because you can almost play the game this way. This is what it looks like. I just dropped down a block. It's very, very closely aligned with the real blocks, but it's not exact. And even the trees, right? These are fake trees, and so if we bring this back in, it needs to know not to draw the fake trees here, and it needs to know not to draw the fake terrain here, because we would have seen like weird parts of it peeking through. And so it uses that view mask to basically tell that shader, make this area transparent in your overall thing. I don't know too much about it. Yeah, in this case, yeah, it's kind of true, um, but it's fast enough, right? The low res shader that's rendering this stuff is not working very hard. It's just doing pixel lookups and regular sort of lighting shading. If we bring it back down, so this is the near terrain, the sort of high res terrain, just the stuff around us. Alrighty, this is pretty good, right? This would be about 2.5 kilometers that we can see. And even these, so now because we don't have the blocks, we just see the low-res version of this is what the buildings are drawn like from far away. Up close, they look kind of strange. It actually reminds me very much of video games in the 90s, some of the 3D video games in the 90s. And so then if we go back here and we bump it out, it makes a big difference. But yeah, so that's what it's doing. In the shader, it's basically deciding to render or not to render. But you're clipping half the screen every frame. It's clipping half the screen. I mean, to test the performance, yeah, but like, so we can turn on this. So in this direction, we're getting 42, 45 frames a second. We can also, what is it, F6? Yeah, so it's showing, I think the yellow is render time. And so we can see, sort of, are we making it work harder or less hard when we turn these back on? But it's just, there's no specific, I guess I could leave this off, but set the masks. So actually this tooling is built into JMonkey Engine. There's even a more detailed one, but I don't think I have that one hooked up. But yeah, so yellow is like the render time, and blue is like my time, the time I spend in my code, basically. That's why it spikes every now and then. So there's no direct way to show it. I'm sure it's some, but like this is the least of my worries, right? Because as soon as I turn on the... Can I turn off the low-res terrain? Yes, I can. Yes, absolutely. So we go turn off, blink, blink, and now we're just near. And it really hasn't affected the draw, right? All of the work right now is being spent drawing these blocks. And probably mostly the grass. I used to have the ability to turn that on and off. Let me see if I still can. I guess I don't have the Flora on off. Well, Flora enabled right there. Yeah, okay, so it used to be like the transparent stuff really bugged it, but not so much anymore. It's probably the trees, right? Yeah, tree leaves also are lots of transparency. So that's what this is with the low res terrain completely off. Let's get rid of this. and I'm still only getting 38, 40 frames a second from this view. If I look at the ground, it should go up. Well, thank you. Yeah, the far terrain, everything about this should not work, but it does. Like if we want to see what the structure of this looks like, we can turn on the wireframe. Where is that wireframe? So this is what the low-res terrain looks like. It's essentially a pie-shaped thing, so as it gets farther away, the pie wedges get bigger, but because they're farther away, they still approximate the terrain well, so that we're actually using fewer triangles out here than we are up here. And there's 2 separate rings that do that. And so you can see right there, it kind of cuts off, and we hit over to the different, even lower res terrain. And that's, you can actually change the settings of this stuff, and it tells you the mesh that's rendering this mid-terrain here is using 1.2 million triangles, and the stuff that's rendering the whole other 16 square kilometers is only using like 1 million triangles and 1 million triangles for fluid. So yeah, I used all the tricks I've learned, but and then I felt like it shouldn't work in modern stuff, but it does. And so there's definitely some oh, I still left the wireframe on. There's definitely still some stuff to work on, right? The transition between near and far is sometimes really obvious. I don't like the fact that you can see the low-res squares on that far terrain. Like, you see what I'm talking about? There's like you can actually see the squares rendered on the far. So I will go back and I will fix that at some point. But when I did it, it already looked so good compared to what I thought it would look like. I just wanted to experiment. Even these far building shapes, when I get farther away, like the first time I did that and I had it like over some reflective water and it just reflected. Hold on, let's get further away. We gotta get far enough away so that clips off, but keep an eye on it. But see, it's a pretty good approximation of that building. Yeah, this one's not a great example, but I mean, you guys have seen it. The buildings tend to look pretty good. Representative, and that gives you the far terrain stuff. Anyway, let's get back to what we were here to do. But that's sort of the ins and outs of the engine. I agree with you. They can be an issue in certain situations, and I do want to make it look better someday, but it looks fine, and it's certainly playable, right? I have a whole set of beautification, like, that I've been, so like there's, I think there's a beautification category in my list that I have like tons of things. Yeah, engine beautification. So there's all these different things to fix all kinds of things, add new features to make things look prettier. But I will wait until we're all tired of fighting monsters and looking at pretty clouds and stuff before I work on that. Flying our airships around in windstorms and things, then I'll worry about making things look better. Okay, back to what we were working on. What were we working on? Oh, yes. What is the nearest... let's just say... What do I want to call this method? I want to call it get nearest, or yeah, get nearest blank distance. Distance squared equals double dot positive to infinity. Okay. Alright, so then we go through all the slots. And defensively. Okay. If slot dot leaf view is not equal to null, and slot dot leaf view, or is it just view? Slot dot leaf view, and then leaf view is rendered. Okay. Yep. So if it's not null and it's rendered, we don't care. And if not, then we want to know the distance, which is loosely the priority. Distance from center, base priority without factoring view direction. But I will... That's probably based on the cell offset, and I want an actual world space. So then double D squared equals slot dot leaf view dot world slot dot world offset length squared. If D squared is less than dist squared, actually let's call it min, then we know what we're doing. Oops. Then, if the distance squared is less than the min distance squared, then min distance squared equals distance squared. And then we return math dot square root and distance squared. Let's do one more thing. If we're still at positive infinity, return 0. That means we found no blanks. No, so that's fine. I think the square root of positive infinity is still going to be positive infinity. So it means we found no blanks, which means, yeah, we can see as far as we can. Or we could set the max to be, based on the view radius. Max view radius, I don't know, it would be view radius. Yeah, so we actually could set this to be view radius. Does vec3i let me get its length? Yes, and length squared. Good, 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 good. So we can set length squared. We will never be more than... This will come in handy when we're also asking the far terrain what its closest blank is, because then we could compare the two. If we were returning positive infinity, then we would always see that we could see forever. So then we ought to be able to, get nearest blank distance. For the moment, I'm going to set the world view equals get state world view state, And for the moment, I'm going to just print it out. I kind of only want to do it once a second, though. Uh-oh. Pepsi's gone. We're down to water. Alright. So time plus equals TPF if time is greater than 1. Log info nearest blank world view nearest blank time equals 0. Okay, so that'll once a second it'll tell us what the nearest blank is. I'm actually going to set this smaller because I don't know at the moment if we will change. Anyway, I want to make sure I catch enough that I actually see it change. If we manage to load all the local train in less than a second, we would never see it change. When I was, I started trying to take some screenshots to use as alternate versions of this, and I realized I think my old third-person view got farther away. She's like, what, 3 fingers tall on my screen. So the third-person view I have now, well, when she finally loads in, yeah, she's much bigger, so I need to have like a more zoomed out version to get really good transition screenshots to do in that hand-drawn view. Anyway, so nearest blank, we should be able to grep nearest blank Mythruna client log. Yeah, see, it was always 5. So somewhere we're doing something wrong because all of our terrain is loaded. So either it's considering the empty spots right, this is the things, because there's empties, I'm wondering if it thinks that one of those, let's try going somewhere where there would be fewer of those, or they would be farther away. Just to see if my hypothesis is correct. Nope. Wow, this goes deep. That is a deep cave. I may have to come back and explore that sometime. Oh, it's like really deep because we started out pretty deep. Right next to this spirit, and it probably pops out over here too. Neat. Okay, so this is definitely wrong. But why is it wrong, though? Oh. I know why. Because this is where I'm asking it to calculate the max. is in leaf space, right? 3, 4, 3. I need to multiply those values by 32. So can I do that with the Beck 3? I think it has multiply. It does. Yes, it does. Cool. So we gotta say B radius mult. Hard code it to 32. That should fix it. These are important. You gotta get your math right. So, and actually I'll do tail-f Mythruna client.log. Excuse me. Ah, crap. grep nearest blank. Okay. Actually, we need to wait until... Oh, we already just basically started. Okay, cool. I think if before 11 I can at least get the near terrain version hooked up, then in principle you guys can see what I'm trying to do, and then I have to put in similar hooks for the far terrain. That's part of the open source libraries. So it requires an extra couple steps to get to the every time I make a change. Okay, so nearest blank 32, nearest blank 45, nearest blank 71, nearest blank 115. Yeah, so, and eventually 186. Cool. Alright, so that is working like it's supposed to. That's what we love to see. And so, if we'll go back to doing this once a second, and actually let's do double max distance, and we will return that. And so I want to have a way to tell the server that we've loaded everything we need. And so if I'm just looking at local terrain for now, I ought to be able to, so if we have an effect in, if we are in effect at all, if effect is not equal to null, then we can calculate what our fade distance is. Max equals double dist equals this, and get max distance. Okay. So we can say post.get portal blindness set fade distance float. Oops. Cast it to float dist. If dist is greater than or equal to max. Oops. What the hell am I doing? Then we want to run an action on the player. So I need two things. Can I run scripts from here? Oops. No, the activation, I think there's actually, I think on game session state I have a way to run actions. Trying to think who on the client already does this that I could look at. Yeah, see, this is all the UI. So who... Oh, on the action input state definitely does. Because that's how it runs anything. It's probably game session directly dot run. Nope. Dot. Oh, it's the tools themselves. The manipulators. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so game session we will need. Okay, so game session we will need, which means we need to grab okay. By the way, the true that I pass to these means that if it doesn't exist, it'll throw an exception rather than just returning null. So that I can find problems sooner. Okay, so game session state, that's good. And so, let's look at here. Session.run. Oops. Wait. Execute command. No. That's not what I want. Maybe I grabbed the wrong thing. Oh, it's the manipulators. Psh. Session.run action. So let me just grab that. Session.run action. Avatar ID. For now, we'll just say clear portal blindness. Blindness. And we don't need any arguments. Okay, so let's log that info. Clearing portal blindness. Alright. And then we need to define that action on the player. So player is an object just like any other. We can add actions to him, like this one. And normally I wouldn't let the client just tell me what I can do here, but we can just say visual effect.class to do check to see if portal blindness is the current effect. Right now there is only one, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so next thing we need to do is when we teleport, when we warp, turn on portal blindness. So actually we can do that right here. Self new visual effect. That means whenever we warp, FX portal blindness. This means we'll even get the portal effect when we warp with the warp command. When we select from the dialog, we'll get this cool effect too. Okay, so we set it. Then the client, when that's in effect, will once a second check the distance. When the distance is already the max distance, it will remove the effect. So we should be able to teleport and see the effect if I haven't done some stupid coding error. Yep, many stupid coding errors. Oh yeah, I didn't keep the avatar ID around. Well, we're gonna want to do that. Actually, I can do one better. First of all, where do we get game session? Yeah. Game session comes from net, Mythruna net, I think. So let's go back over here. We're going to need to import net, and instead of this, we want to say self.getID. Alright. Those were the two errors I got, so we figured those out. It occurs to me I don't do a very good job of policing my background here. So hopefully I haven't... Oh, awesome! Everything is... man, I love this. I love this. I'm so glad we did this on a previous live stream where I made this error dialog. Unable to resolve class... Oh, it's not called visual effect. It's vision effect. But this saves me so much time, and the fact that you guys can generate a report and send it to me, super cool. But I even went and hooked this up to some of the internal UIs, so if like a script fails or whatever, it'll pop up a little thing where I can like open this dialog. But so many of these things I find an error and I'm like, I don't want to deal with it right now, so I just generate a report to go back and look at later. It's very cool. So this is in scripts, which is why it didn't notice right away. But why was it trying... Oh, it was just trying to compile it. So this is vision effect, which is different than a visual effect. Okay, let's try again. This would be a good note to end the stream on if it works. Let's commit to making it work. At least for the near terrain. And actually we can make it work a little harder. Like if the effect doesn't last long enough, I can increase the block radius, which will make it take longer to load in. Okay, you see there's something there. It's a tower or something. May have to go check that out later. Okay, so let's try it out. Everybody cross their fingers. Alright, so let's pop through that portal. Bajoing! Uh-oh. The portal she no work. Did we get an error? Ooh. Nah, that's just a long query. Okay, so maybe something failed. Okay, so we got me double whammied. Let's try again. Blank. Yep, we did. We got a bunch of errors right here. That's not the error. That's the error. No such proper visual effect action delegate. Who is trying to do it though? Player Groovy 307. Control Shift G 307. Oh, I changed one but not the other. Okay. That's unfortunate because I have to restart for that. Oh boy. Oh. Yeah, I had never been here before, I guess. Yeah, because I was over here before. Yeah, so we're generating lots of far terrain at the moment. Not lots, a little bit. So we can get all this loaded in. Man, these spirit temples generated really close together. There's two of them only about 1.5 kilometers apart right here. This doesn't always happen. It's just random, but because in the test worlds I was doing it, and I was having trouble getting the networks to connect unless I had these red lines are those super long ones. And spoiler alert, the strength of the moon will control whether these are actually enabled or not. And so I need to actually come back and come on, get rid of there. So I need to actually come back and make it so that there'll be some portals that exist. Come out. Come out. There we go. There'll be some portals that exist but aren't active. Like if one of these was one of those red lines, like this one is a red line. And so if the phase of the moon was wrong, like the moon wasn't big enough, I want to just have like the pink ring without the portal in the middle just to show that there would have been a portal here, but something's not right. So let me walk off of here. It's finished loading in that far terrain, so I'm going to go ahead and exit out so we can reload. Let me just make sure I don't have any more visuals hanging around. Ooh, that was loud. Okay, try one more time. For the, according to YouTube, 7 people that are watching, which is a high number for me these days. That's good. This time for sure. Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. This time for sure. Hey! Yeah, I can't. I used to do a better Bullwinkle. There's something preventing it from happening. I've been taking some of my younger child's vocal lessons for them sometimes when they can't make them because we were building up so many makeups. And I'm not like a great singer. I just enjoy doing it, and so it's been fun taking vocal lessons because I never had any kind of training. But it's like opened up an awareness of where I'm speaking and singing from at any given time. It's if you've never had any kind of vocal training, it might be weird, but like you can put your voice in different places in your head and stuff, and I'm still getting used to that. And I can't sometimes find my old impressions anymore. Like whether they sounded good or not back then, I don't know, but they don't sound right to me anymore because like they're in a different place in my head now. All right, so we ought to be able to. Okay. Let's go back to where we were, which would be this one? No. Oh, we don't even have that option anymore. It took that option away. Or it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. I guess we'll see. Here goes nothing. Oh. No portal blindness effect at all. Well, poop. Did we get another error? It would have been long gone by now. Let's just grep visual effect. A vision effect. Oh man, that's gonna get me so often. Mythruna client.log. Clearing portal blindness. So we cleared it. I think maybe it just happened too fast. So let's try and increase our radius. Oh man, there's so many things queued. Oh, we're still rendering something. Like at 2 at a time, it takes it forever to render all of the far terrain. Not the far terrain, the near terrain. That's funny. Okay, so we got it all rendered now. So yeah, let's go south then. And that should be over here. Yep. Okay, let's try that. Come on, work. Okay, we do get portal effects. So we do have a portal effect. It's not... I don't know if it's the distance is correct. It's still loading all the things. Okay, well, I mean, we can definitely see everything within the radius. As it's loading in, it should extend that radius out. It is. But I didn't set the minimum up, which is why we don't get the effect up close. But at some point it should load in all of the things. And then the effect goes away. Of course, and I need to hook it to the far terrain too. But it is working. Oh, I scared the birdie. So the other thing I need to do is we need to pick a good default for the portal blindness. She is blinding. Oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't set the... That's right. I figured that out before. It doesn't set that minimum. I think like 0.2 was a better... Well, it's going to be always nighttime. So we're always going to have sort of this effect. And... Oh, it should definitely fade away smoothly. True. That's true also. And so I can actually control that. Oh, maybe I can't. Well, so right now I just set the so here's like advanced stuff, right? So right now I just set the fade distance directly. But what it really should do is set a target fade distance which we tween up to. So as the distance goes up, it doesn't jump there right away, but it slowly increases to maximum, and then when we finally really do get to the maximum, it will clear the portal blindness. So you're right, there will be a smoothness to it, but it makes it harder to debug. But because and the smoothness will just be taking it out slowly, right? Because that should be good enough. So I think I need to decide on what a good minimum fade is. So it's going to be at night, so we're good. This is a good approximation. I think it's cool that even though it's nighttime, it looks bright with this on. So we turn it off and it's dark. So portal blindness, then it should be stronger. 0.2 seems pretty good. Like even close up, you're going to be confused about what's going on. Yeah, I think 0.2 is probably a good value. I may want to tweak these colors. Since it's always at night, perhaps we set the background to a darker color. Okay, so first of all, Let's make the default portal blindness set in fade. What did I call it? Crap. Just hang out with me for a second. Set fade minimum. We liked 0.2. Is it a float? I bet it is. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I make it a float here. It will work even if it's not a float there. And then I need to also, just so that I don't catch this in the future, set this as well, just so that it always has one. Fade minimum. So whatever it's set to before we even init the filter, we will set that. And then what else? Oh, yes, I was going to change, I think for the background color, I think something darker and maybe like a purplish color. Let's play with that a second. Where's my portal testy thingy here? Since we want to like get artistic with the colors, we'll check them out over here, because then I can mess with them. So it needs to be, this effect will generally happen at nighttime, and perhaps I can base the color, because since I set it up for any warping, it can happen in the daytime, but for now it's only happening at night. And so let's pick a background color that we like better. So let's say very little green and a bunch of blue. Ooh, okay, we're getting there. Let's try 2 and 3. Yeah, it's because it's at night, right? And so we can potentially change that to be different colors, different time of day. So if we were portaling in the daytime, we could have it be brighter. But I think a darker background will work better for this, because it's happening at nighttime. So let's just steal this and take it over to here. But this is the stuff I get caught in, the endless tweaking of colors. And okay, so all that's set up right. Let's check it in the game again. And if it looks good, this is probably where I'll end the night, and I'll get the far train working different. But we do know we need to set the... It happens too quickly right now, so I have to set that far value up. It loads in the local terrain too quick. That's because I had already been to these places. Otherwise, it might have to generate that terrain as well. So perhaps we'll try portaling to some farther locations. Take some reds. Then we won't even have close terrain right away. But let's see. Okay, so where are we on the map? First of all, let's go and oh, our clip. It remembers our clip. That's right. Yay. So it is still loading in var values. I can see it up in here, right? Oh, everybody's just finished. Okay. So where are we on the map? Oh, gotta hit the right key. Okay, so maybe we'll try going over here this time. So the left portal. Joink. Alright. Yeah, so we're like hung. That's something I'll have to fix because we shouldn't be hanging the UI during this process. Okay, so it's slowly coming in. Yeah, if anything, right, so we've got the effect happening as we load things in. Are we having troubles here? Nope, just long queries. So it's like slowly, well, I don't know how slowly it's receding away. I think we could probably go even darker. So anyway, as that far train comes in, but we can kind of like look around and see where we are. If there were a bunch of monsters we spawned into, we could still fight them. Yeah, it's still loading in all that stuff. It's coming. There's a town nearby, I think. Yep. My ear is itching. I'm waiting for it to finish loading in. There we go. But eventually, eventually it will have to recede all the way to the far horizon. So it will have a built-in sort of fading anyway. But yeah, the transition should be smoother. So we've got a town at night there. That's kind of cool. All right, so it's working. In principle, it is working. And I think that's probably where I'll stop it for the night. It's been a productive evening. Oh, but wait. We get to, yeah, so we're still loading in the far train. There it goes. We get to mark things done. We created an app state for the vision effects. We wired in closest blank behavior for the world view. We still need to do it. Wire in closest blank for far train. And then we did do this. And we did do this. We will add tweening for fade distance so that it never jumps a lot. Okay, so that's a new one. I like to make these green. Boink. That's a productive stream. Okay. Good to see green. Yeah, lots of green. We like the green. So I need to do that same thing for the far train and then add some tweening. Alright. And with that, I will go ahead and thank everyone for joining. If we really did have 7 concurrent, that's awesome. If you guys are new, again, up in the upper left corners where you can download the game, or if you just want to type that link in, and you can join the Discord and you can chat with us on there. But otherwise, thanks, and if you think of future ideas for future streams, like, comment, subscribe. Helps the YouTube algorithm, feed the algorithm. So thanks for watching. I will see you guys next week. Thanks, guys.